Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Today I'm here with fourth year computer science student. In fact, he's been on the podcast before, Hrid Patel. Thank you for joining us.
I'm back. Don't be sheep, okay? Every year, a new iPhone's going to come out. That's a set in stone fact, okay? Same thing. Samsung does the same thing. Don't be a sheep and like the memes that say they're the same every year because they're not. Haha, it's so funny. It looks the same. They just move the camera. It's not that. There's many reasons why, and you need to educate yourself. Okay, we can get into it now.
Break it down, because for me,
Yes.
until my speaker got absolutely blasted in the ass,
Yeah.
I was someone who thought, I'm going to upgrade every 6 iPhones. Do you have an iPhone or a Samsung?
Well, I have an iPhone. I have Okay, this is going to sound like I'm an Apple glazer. I have the new iPhone, okay? I upgraded after 3 years, so I'm not the person who gets it every year. Those memes, they're supposed to be funny, but they've been going around for so many years now. It's not funny, guys. It's time to just educate yourself. We're in a world where education and knowledge is everywhere. Just learn a little, like, please.
Ready to hit it?
I'm ready.
Let's do it.
All right.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the VoV podcast, Voices of Vic. Today I'm here with fourth year computer science student. In fact, he's been on the podcast before, Hrid Patel. Thank you for joining us.
I'm back.
He's back.
I'm back.
The man himself.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to be back here. It's been a while. It's been a long time coming, actually.
It has. The
Yeah.
podcast back then, you were episode 29?
I think something like that, yeah.
And it's grown since then. We're lucky that, are still alive to be speaking with you today. Not
yes.
me as a human, but I mean the podcast.
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, the podcast has been doing very well. Always love seeing it on my feed, seeing what our school community is talking about. It's always great. Everything that this pod stands for is great. Open discourse about whatever you want. It's great. I love that.
I appreciate that plenty. You hold the record officially for the longest gap between consecutive repeat episodes. I was kind of telling you that on our walk here.
Yeah, now I get it, yeah.
But it is official. It's at least,
Right.
Well, I don't exactly know what number this is going to be, but it goes from episode 29 to episode 100 something. That's like I think it's at least 76 episodes of gap. And you're back.
And I'm back.
The one and only.
I'm a loyal VoV fan. That's the proof.
There you go. There you go. You had your friend Snoop Mesh come on. His podcast did pretty well.
What are your thoughts about him? Because I watched that podcast and I'm like, interesting, because I know him personally. Well, what did you think though?
I can't wait to make clips for that podcast. I haven't edited things yet. I actually haven't edited clips for some time, but I'm done school now. I'm done with finals. All that's behind me. Well, that's another interesting conversation to get into about how this is, going to rebrand a bit. But no, I can't wait to make clips for that. So boy. Okay, so my thoughts, Snoop Mesh. I can't necessarily say, boy, he said to me before we started recording.
Okay.
But let's just say he's a funny guy.
He's a very funny guy.
That's true. Guy.
He's always got a good sense of humor. So
absolutely.
Yeah, I saw that, and then, when you know the real him and you see him there, it's like, all right, that's him.
100%.
Yeah.
So catch me up with you, Hrid. What's new, man?
So for the last 1 year, I've been doing a co-op with the City of Brampton. So my fourth year essentially has been a co-op. I am contracted until end of August to make it a 16-month term. So nice. I'm there for the long run.
Yep.
And yeah, that's pretty much it. So the last time we did the pod was I was in third year, I think November-ish, roughly. Yeah. So then, since then I finished a semester, and then all I've been doing is this co-op for 12 months now.
Yeah.
So it's that's kind of been the work-life routine. That's just what it is.
Is it more exciting than school? Is it more mundane? How do you compare for, the students who either didn't take a co-op or aren't at that stage yet?
Right.
The life, the two lives.
It's interesting because, when I talk to friends, I talk to family, and they're like, oh, what are you up to? It's like, oh, I'm working. It's like, oh, so you don't get the whole exam thing, assignments. You're not in that school mindset at the moment. I agree. I'm not in a school mindset. It's basically I work a 9 to 5. My shifts are a little bit different, but it's 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. That is my life every single week.
Yeah.
So it's like you really quickly find out the work-life balancing act because you realize that's a very real thing. You hear about it a lot, but then when you go to a job like this where it's routine, you realize that it is such a real thing. And compared to schoolwork, it's a lot more structured because when you're in a job, you have a job, a job description that you must very strictly follow sometimes. So, the second it hits Friday, 5 p.m., I'm shutting off my corporate phone. I'm not looking at that until Monday, 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Right? So compared to school, it's like, oh, weekends you still have assignments, you have projects, whatever, right? Like it's a lot more variable,
ingrained into your life as well.
Exactly. Yeah. It's like the thing that's so critical to your life and your day-to-day objectives, which would be school, your assignments, your grades, whatever. Instead of that, it's suddenly, oh, I just need to go to work. I need to show up at work, do my job, come home, and then I don't have that responsibility. Whereas for school, you go to school, you go to class, you come home, you still have that responsibility of doing your grades, your assignments. That's a continuous thing.
Yeah.
Work is more, I was going to say severed because I've seen Severance lately. I don't know if you've seen it, the show. No. But yeah, it's like, I feel like my work life is a completely separate me from my home life.
Yeah.
So that's a very different thing.
Interesting. So between the two, this is obviously, I was expecting to talk about this a little bit later on, but between the two, work and school, which feels more authentic? Which feels more fulfilling to you? Which life do you prefer, I guess?
Now we're getting into the weeds.
Yeah.
Which one feels more fulfilling to me? Honestly, I think work is more fulfilling because for school, it's like school stuff is an objective to something else, a career or something, right? While as at work, everything that I do is solely for the purpose of an objective that I am then going to be like, how do I say this? Like not graded on, but they're going to judge my performance in the workplace based on what I'm delivering. There's actual deliverables that I have to give. It's not just, oh, this assignment is for a grade, which is for a degree, which is for a job, hopefully.
Right.
This is, I'm doing a project for my boss, and my boss is going to use that for something tangible, something that's actually impactful in the workplace. So I feel like there's a very much clearer correlation between the stuff I do at work and its impact than the stuff I do at school and its impact. I remember one thing we talked about last time on the pod was how UofT is more theoretical.
Yep.
So when you learn something theoretical in a class, it's like the line between that and its application in my actual life someday is very blurry. Whereas at work, I see that line very clearly.
So, okay, you see that line clearly, and you're talking about how it gets to an end point that is more tangible than what school leads to. I guess this is a logical question to follow up with. What do you do at your co-op? What is your work, involved in?
So it's a little bit complicated, so feel free to ask questions. So basically, I work in, the fancy name is Service Management and Compliance. Now, what that actually means is that for all the IT departments at the City of Brampton, so it's a public corporation, but there are still departments for IT, like you'll have your web support, whatever, right? Those departments, we support their process. So we do all the businessy side to define their processes, their documentation, whatever. We help them make their work, as my boss likes to say, cheaper, faster, easier, one of the three. So that's kind of what our department handles. So, there's another, I guess we're joined to the hip with another department called Client Care. That's the client facing. So our clients are internal employees. So basically, those people are the people that deal with the laptops and the code, whatever, not code, the laptops, the phones and stuff that they give to the internal employees, and they handle that. They're on the phones. So if there's a problem saying, hey, this isn't working, the person on the help desk, the phone, is Client Care. So we work very closely with all these other departments to make their life easier, faster, cheaper. So. Okay. That's where my duties lie, in that service management, more businessy.
Yeah. And so these are the clients you're helping, the different departments you're helping. These are what are they? They different departments in the City of Brampton?
City of Brampton, yeah.
Other public corporations? Or?
No. They're all internal employees. So we serve internal employees. So if you're in recreation, you're working at a rec facility doing programs for 10-year-olds, or even if you work at the City Hall and you're one of the council assistants. For example, anybody who works as the City of Brampton employee, we support them.
Got it. Okay, interesting. So this would then lead me to this question. You seem like someone who's on the go. Talked about last time a bit of time management, how to make the most of your hours. Public sector employees often have the reputation of being slower, of not necessarily knowing how to manage that time, because you would think like someone who's running their own company, obviously they have to keep the lights on themselves. They want profit. If they make more money for the company, they likely will see some of that return, especially if they're running their own company. Whereas in the public sector, there's no profit. It's purely service. This means that it disincentivizes perhaps the employees to do quick, efficient work. You're in this sector. Yeah. What do you think about that? Do you feel sometimes, maybe I'd be faster if I was in a private sector, or no, I bust my ass. This is not necessarily the case. Like, what do you think about that?
Oh, so for the record, I don't want this going against me if I ever work for a private sector company or a public sector company. But I think there are more roadblocks. It's funny. I was talking about this to my parents yesterday because they're asking about my job right now, right? So because it's public sector, the way budgets work, the way, things get approved is very different because it's taxpayer dollars, right? So like private sector, I would say does move faster, but that the slowness, quote, slowness that comes with being in a public sector company, that's inherent to being public sector, I think, because the fact is that if public sector was fast paced as private sector, I feel like that would be a disservice to the taxpayer dollars.
That's fair.
Yeah. So I do feel those roadblocks. Like you also feel, I don't know about disincentivized employees, but you do feel friction in a lot of stages because it's public sector. Yeah. But things do move mostly at a decent pace, not as fast as private sector, I'm sure. But it's kind of a fine line that I think is just inherent to the public sector the way it is. Yeah. I think it's just a part of it, and it's kind of hard to avoid.
100%. There's no, I guess, figurehead to make an executive order to
exactly.
There's not like they need to check in with a committee. That's actually another interesting conversation to have. It's like our political system we consider democratic, and it's kind of more similar to this public idea of we can't just make an executive order. One person can't be in charge of all these taxpayers' money. We have to kind of talk about it and make sure it's okay before we move ahead. Yeah. But then other countries, you look at countries that, have, I don't know if necessarily dictatorships, but like someone where you have a head, like a chief. Yeah. Russia, I'm pretty sure Putin's the chief of Russia.
Oh yeah, sure feels like it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In Dubai or in the UAE, they have a head guy. When he says something, it happens. There's no committee, which is, it's good when you like the person in charge, and it's bad when you don't agree with the person in charge.
Exactly.
So when you look at our system here, I don't know if you even care about this or think about this at all, but this is something that kind of interests me. Is like, if I believe that the private sector, or if anyone believes that the private sector works more efficiently, does part of you then think, would we want that as our political system as well? And I think probably not, because there are businesses that fail. When you are running your own business, obviously you're going to agree with everything that you do most of the time, I would say. But when it comes to, political officials who are kind of more in charge of your life, I'm okay with the slowness. Actually, this is not something I realized until talking about it right now. Yeah. That makes sense.
You do. It's taxpayer dollars. Every time we, for example, we hear about something that was purchased by a department, or like, because I'm a resident of Brampton, so I'm like, those are my taxpayer dollars. Yeah. Or if I see someone took a day off, I'm like, my taxpayer dollars. It all comes down to that. So yeah, I think it's actually a good thing, like you said, that it's slower than the private sector for good reasons.
Yeah. So you in this role in this department, I saw that you were working with AI. You're developing AI.
I have been, yes.
And you have also received the reputation across Brampton for being the king of AI.
Maybe not across Brampton. But
I've been hearing all the Bramptonites reaching out to VoV saying, you had Hrid Patel in episode 29. This guy's the king of AI in Brampton.
I'm not going to deny those allegations.
Keep it humble. That's how we like it.
But I have been. So AI has just been so funny. We talked about this on the last podcast too. In 2023, on that podcast, I remember saying that AI was the buzzword of the year. Yeah. It is still such a big buzzword. Everything you look at, they say, this is AI driven. This is AI driven. It could be, I think I saw an ad yesterday. It's like Salesforce or Workforce, which is an HR company. They're like, AI driven insights. It's like, what? Yeah. You don't need AI in HR. But anyway, so AI is just such a big thing. And, at the city, we have a new CIO, so Chief Information Officer. He's like the guy above my management, and he's really putting this directive forward. Like, we need to be AI ready. We need to be AI forward. We want to be ahead of the curve on this thing, and, be right at the forefront. So there have been mumblings of, how we should do it, how we can incorporate it in our departments and stuff. But I was ahead of the curve, even to our CIO, actually.
Nice.
So I started last year in May. In about June or July-ish, so for some time, like I said, remember I mentioned the client care department where you're client-facing. You're on the calls with the clients, talking to them. Like you're on IT help support, whatever, right? So I did that for a short amount of time just because it was part of my onboarding. You learn the department, right? So I learned very quickly that the knowledge that you need to troubleshoot people's problems is like very little of it is stored somewhere or very little of it is easily retrievable. Most of it comes from people. So for example, the more experienced colleagues that I have, they know more. Some people know more than others. Some people have worked on certain projects more than others. So that knowledge was like so separated and, like it was hard to retrieve, especially because I started new. I witnessed it firsthand how hard it is for somebody to have the same knowledge as another person. So what I did was I thought about making a AI chatbot. So I could go into the weeds of how it actually works from start to finish. I don't know if the techie people would want to listen to that, but basically it's running locally right now. It's not actually deployed, but I made a chatbot that says, describe your problem. You say, my VPN isn't working. And then after, give it like 2 to 3 seconds, and it'll say, okay, try doing this, this, and this. If it doesn't work, follow up. So I made it like, if you go to any website, you see an AI chat support agent. I basically developed that all on my own in the time that I was bored at work. So yeah, my bosses were very impressed. It took a while because, I'm doing it on the side. It's more of a side project. We call it a passion project. So yeah, I was the first person to bring AI into pretty much any department. And then the CIO came. I don't know if he knows about what I've done, but my management does. Yep. And they were very impressed that, I just kind of came up with this out of the fly.
That's sick. That's awesome.
It's neat.
Did you use a software like Voice Flow or like one of those little things? What did you use to make it?
So fun fact, we were talking about things going slow in public sector. My motto in all of my work, and I tell this to my colleagues all the time, I'm all about work smarter, not harder. Yeah. So the way I made my chatbot was with ChatGPT.
Nice.
I used ChatGPT to build a ChatGPT dupe for the city. That's essentially what I did. Yeah. And it was a smarter way of working, not the harder way of working. But I did, in my defense, I did definitely take my AI and machine learning notes from courses I took in third year. We talked about some of the pod back then. So I took those notes to work and I kind of flipped through it, looked at all the ideas, refreshed myself, and then made ChatGPT help me make it. I used it as a tool. It didn't write everything.
For sure.
You got to use it as a tool. And yeah, it's all based in Python right now. And there's a program called LM Studio, it basically loads language models, so it converts its thinkings into actual sentences and stuff. Yeah. So it's all Python based.
That's sick. So I like this because this is we have the conversation about AI, and obviously it's a podcast. People listen to what we're talking about, but something that has kind of been nagging at me recently because I record these as often as I do is like, how do I make sure I'm not just talking and actually doing what we're talking about? Because I think, this is not a very uncommon problem that people have. Like I'm not alone on this, but I feel like, we like to talk about things that we believe in and we actually believe them in our hearts. We're not lying when we say it, but then when we have the opportunity to act in the way that we were talking about is ideal to act, we don't take that opportunity. So with AI, it's like everyone talks about, it's going to be the future. So many opportunities. You could succeed very well, use it as a tool, all these things. You're like, great, that makes perfect sense. But then I feel like there isn't as many conversations of people telling the story of how they implemented what they told you they were going to do before.
Practicing what you preach.
Exactly. Right. So I think this is great. Even though we're doing it 2 years later, this is perfect. You have said something in the past and now we're here in the present and it's actually helped you out. So you said that your management was impressed with it. How do you think that will help you, in the next few months of your internship, of your co-op here?
So going into a co-op, if you're doing a long-term one like myself, the goal is I want them to want to hire me once I'm done, right? Like that's most people's goal is to do that, unless it's a shorter 4-month or something.
And that is your goal with this?
My goal is to get hired, yes, because, you know, knowing the job market right now, being employed is a great benefit. So I just want to be hired, right? And they know that. I'm sure they know that. But unfortunately, being a public sector company, but I don't know if this happens in private sector or not, but we have vendors, other companies we work with that we buy services from. I kid you not, every single one that could have offered something has offered an AI product. And so the management, obviously, meaning that there's less work on our teams. If we can buy it from a vendor, we then give them the responsibility. We just buy the service off of them. That is the route the management wants to take. So my product currently is sitting on the best machine that I've been able to borrow. It is not mine. I've been borrowing it technically illegally. Not illegally, but I'm not supposed to, according to our process. It's on one of our temporary, you know, swappable devices in case somebody has a problem. So it's running on there, not in production, and it's there in the case that we realize, you know what, our vendors don't have what he has. This guy, the AI goat, as some may say, you know, rumor has it. If they realize that, you know, none of them are going to be as configurable or as good as mine, they're going to then use it. So right now it is on the back burner. It has been thrown away there. But I have been able to present this formally in a presentation to my management. And they were impressed. You know, they had some questions like, oh, can we tweak it to do this? Can we have it linked to these articles or these documents, right? So it's like literally the direct proof of what it's talking about. It's not just words. It's like, here, check out this document, and that has the troubleshooting. So they had a lot of ideas, and they were very impressed. They've been really happy about it. But like I said, they're obviously looking to have less work on the city. Even if it costs more technically, they'd rather have it go to a vendor. So while they are happy, and I do think it's set a very good impression of what I'm capable of as a computer science major, they know that, you know, it might not be completely feasible. And I guess on a side note, another reason why they don't really want to do it the way that I have it is because currently I'm the only one who knows how to run it and how it actually is structured and how it works. If let's say I leave, or I do get hired, whatever, I'm the only person who knows it, and then I have to train other people to know it. And then, you know, now other people also have added responsibility. The department's unionized. Everybody needs to technically be able to do the same things. So then there's a lot more complications. So, you know, it's like, it's a weighing scale. You know, which side do you prefer more? Do you want to just leave all responsibility to the vendor, but then you're dependent on the vendor? Or do you want everything in-house, but then you have a more convoluted employee responsibility space, you know? So it set a good impression. It's as a employee, it set a good impression, but, you know, even my boss and my colleagues, they all wanted this to be my success. Like the stamp that I wanted to make, that was going to be that stamp, hasn't quite happened. And fun fact, I have not told my parents about this project at all.
Why not?
The reason being, because I know my parents, you know, they would have been like, wow, that is so impressive. But then every few weeks, I'd be like, hey, what happened to that project? What happened to that project? You know what I mean? Then the expectation is that, oh, you gotta make it happen. You gotta make it happen. But, you know, I wanted to tell them if it became my success story. But when they listen to this, they'll now know about it. But, yeah, it's been a good impression, I guess, just kind of wrap up that topic. It's been a good impression, but feasibility in the city of Brampton is looking less and less likely. But I am known as the AI guy now because they know that he was able to do this all by himself on his free time. So if we actually needed something from him, he's the guy.
There you go.
That's the positive.
Mr. and Mrs. Patel, you should be very proud of your son. This guy's the king of AI in Brampton, and he's gonna go places in life.
Okay? I hope so.
So, yeah, that's interesting. So when you're talking about that, what comes to my mind is the spirit that different people enter into the workforce with. So at my first job, I didn't think of work. I say I didn't think of work in the right way. To me, it wasn't the right way. Obviously now my relationship with work is a lot better. I'm really I can't wait to start working, honestly. People, when they graduate from university, there's a large percentage, I'd say maybe even a majority of students who dread entering into the workforce, who dread career life, because to them it's like, it's the end of it's the end of school, it's the end of studying, it's the end of freedom, it's rigid schedules, it's no summers, it's like it's very daunting. But
sounds a lot like my sister, to be honest.
Really?
Yeah, she's like, I could never do a 9 to 5.
Is your older sister?
Older sister, yeah. She's like, I can never do a 9 to 5, doing that every day is like the worst thing ever. She's like, this is going to be, because she just finished her second year of optometry school. So she's like, this is going to be my last summer. And then after that, it's going to be studying and, doing rotations at different clinics and stuff. She's like, this is going to be it. So fun fact, one of the reasons she went into a field like optometry is because you don't work a 9 to 5, you kind of work your own flexible hours. So she is definitely one of those people you talk about where it's like, once you go to career life, things change drastically and it's like something to dread, she's definitely one of those people. So I know exactly what you mean. To hear her talk about it all the time.
100%. Yeah. And I like, I've felt it myself before. Yeah. Obviously I kind of had this mindset shift, like thinking about that life was very dreadful. But I think what fixed it for me was understanding. I never heard of the term intrapreneur. Everyone knows entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Right? You start your own business, you have your company, you're taking on all the risk. That's the most important part, is you taking on the risk of whether you get paid or not, basically.
Right.
Intrapreneur. I don't know. Have you ever heard of this term?
I have not. No.
It's basically the exact same spirit as an entrepreneur minus the risk. So it's someone who enters into a company, strives, always looking to improve, always looking to outpace the expectations, do more than what's asked of them, kind of what you're doing. This is why I'm even bringing it up.
Right, I see.
And they kind of, I don't want to say force their company's hand, but basically they're trying to dictate their own pay. They're trying to, upgrade their salary, whether it's from a raise from the company they're at now, or they can say, listen, I've gained so many different skill sets that I could go be employed at a higher rate somewhere else.
True.
So it's not necessarily like a life like that, to me, doesn't sound as dreadful, because at least you're pushing, you're trying to grow. Yeah. And I feel like there could be a lot of fulfillment from that, and not just needing to start your own company. Right. For you, when you're thinking of eventually graduating, how do you approach that life? How are you thinking of the work world? Are you dreading it? Are you trying to be an intrapreneur? Are you trying to be an entrepreneur? What do you think?
This has been an internal discourse in my mind for basically ever since I started this job, because like I was describing earlier, my job is a lot of service management stuff, documents, process and stuff. And other friends in the workplace, they laugh at me like, you're the document guy. But that is the job. It's important work that some people don't like. Some people like it more. But I went in there as a CS major, and I'm doing work in a very different space. So, very quickly I started looking for fulfillment, because in my mind, it's like, is this the job that I wanted when I started CS at UofT? Is this the job that I wanted when I wanted to do CS as a high schooler? And I decided that's going to be my career path, right? It's like, it was so vastly different, but still felt important. It was still loosely related because it's all IT stuff, right? It's all about your techie computers and whatever, right? So, so the way I approached it when I got into career life, although technically it's a temporary career life because I got to go back to school.
Kind of like a flashbang.
Yeah. So the start of it, within like a week of it, I realized, I'm like, you know what? I'm not writing a single line of code here. What's going on? How do I change this? Because I didn't feel like I knew how to do the things that they wanted me to do. So I'll give one example. It might fly over everyone's heads, but every employee at the City of Brampton, or most of them, they get a corporate laptop, let's say, right? Now, those corporate laptops, when we give them as the city, as a device for you to use, there are rules, there are boundaries, there are certain applications, certain things set up for you from the get-go. We call that process imaging. And then, so when you set that up, you then get it, and then there's some manual steps you have to do. So for the first 2 to 3 weeks, that was my job. Because I just started, it's like, here, we're going to ease you into some work. That's the easiest thing we can do, image some laptops for us every day. So I got so, my brain got numbed after about a week or two, because I'm doing the same, 10 steps in a checklist 20 times a day, and this is mind-numbing work. It's not interesting. How can I, A, have more of an interest in what I'm doing, and B, how do I include my CS knowledge? So then what I did was I found out that all Windows laptops use something called PowerShell. That's how you can script things. So I went to ChatGPT. I'm like, hey, I have this 10-step checklist that I do repeatedly on laptops like 20 times a day. Can I make one singular file that'll give me a shortcut to each of those 10 things so it cuts down my time by like 50%? So within a week of working there, I put this out there. I showed the people I was working, like, hey, let's start using this because going through all of these menus is so annoying.
Yeah.
So they were like, oh, this guy, he's got a knack for, efficiency stuff, right? So then right there, that was the first thing I did. I put some scripting knowledge out there in my workplace, entrepreneur stuff, right? So I was already innovating in my workspace. Then after about a month later, I'm like, I still need something more. I need, as some would call it, I need the dagger, the thing that's going to make me really stand out as a co-op. That's how the AI project came to mind.
Yeah, that's huge. I want to leave us on a cliffhanger first. We got to take the 5-minute break.
Sure.
Let the cameras cool down.
Okay.
And we'll jump right back at where we're talking right now. We are back, Mr. Hrid Patel.
Yes, sir.
So we were talking about finding fulfillment in work.
Yes.
Let's keep going from there.
So we're at the part where, I was looking for, right. So I came into the job. I needed to use my CS knowledge in some way. First weekend, I made a little script to help us save time. About a month or two later, I made the AI chatbot. And then going forward, I made it very clear to my colleagues, the people who have been here for longer. I'm like, any kind of scripting work you need, PowerShell or not, please put me on that project. I will help you, or I will literally do it all myself. And fun fact, some of the projects where it's like, it was some scripting work, we needed to automate stuff. So it's like, you might wonder, like, what kind of scripting work might come out of service management. But like we said, faster, easier, cheaper. So one of those is making things faster. We can automate stuff. A lot of scripting work happens there. So every time there's scripting work, I tell them, please put me on that project. One of the projects we got right towards the start of my co-op, I flew through that thing so much, I didn't give any of the other people a chance to work on it. They're like, okay, this next one we're getting, please let me work on it first. I'll come to you after. I'm like, okay, my bad. I didn't know I'm like flying through it because I'm finally so excited to work on some scripting work, right? But that was like my mindset. It's like any kind of thing that uses my degree knowledge, I want it so badly. Because other than that, I'm doing something that's outside of my specialty, right? So moving forward, I became more of the automation scripting guy. Even to this day, if there's something that we need to script, okay, he knows his scripting knowledge, he can work on it, he's your guy. So if I didn't take those initiatives, I don't think I'd be very, how do I say this? I wouldn't be pleased with my work. I would feel satisfied that I'm doing what I'm being asked, but I wouldn't be satisfied because I'm not being asked the things that I want to be asked.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So in my case, I made the job something that I like because now there's a nice mix of, scripting work, which is my CS coding knowledge, and non-scripting work, which is me expanding my horizons, learning a whole new side of the business, right? Even if there's a public corporation, it's still a business. There's still, a bunch of IT stuff. I have to deal with so many other departments, a lot more businessy side of things that you don't usually think about. So, I'm working on the things I know. I'm also developing myself, like we were saying, entrepreneur. It's like I'm changing things in this job spec to broaden the horizons in a way that works for me, makes me happy with the job I'm doing, and, makes me want to stay because, I like what I do. Yeah. Otherwise, I might not fully like what I do if I wasn't doing the scripting work and that space of stuff. If I wasn't doing that, I wouldn't be so happy. I'd just be content, but I'd be looking for other avenues. Yeah. I'd be looking for the next thing where I could use my degree. But yeah, last summer, actually, I'll talk about this too. Last summer, so about 4 to 8 months in, I was really considering, what am I going to do after this co-op? Can I find a co-op afterwards? Because my initial contract was only 8 months. I then extended for 8 months. But before I extended, I applied to about 30 to 50 job applications just to see, is there an opportunity on the table for me? Can I go somewhere else? Yeah. Because, I kept thinking, like I have friends, I have people who are doing co-ops at the same time. They're at, coding company. They're at, I don't know, like, I was going to give some examples, but now I'm blanking. But they're at companies where they do code, right? They're actually software developers. They have the same degree as me, or same major. And, it makes me wonder. It's like, I was in that space where I'm like, I need to get out of here or I need to change the job. So when I was in that like dilemma, the way I found fulfillment, as I said, was changing the job. But I didn't rule out the option of looking elsewhere. Yeah. So it's like that fulfillment kind of came from a lot of effort on my point, and to prove to my bosses that, you know what, let him take that on because he's good at it and it works. Yeah. It's a good thing. So yeah, it's like, it was a strange time, especially those first 8 months when I'm thinking, you know, is this what I signed up for? Is this what high school me said, you know, hey, I want to do CS as my career? Is this what he thought? Is this what I should be working at? Do I deserve more? Should I be striving for more? Should I be working harder? You know, it's like a lot of questions of self-doubt about myself is like, am I doing a good job? Is this job for me?
Yeah.
So I think that work that I put in the workspace to make it for me was crucial, which kind of just came out naturally, but that was the key.
That's huge. That's awesome. What I'm thinking of, this is going to be difficult to do, but let's try to figure this out.
Okay.
Trying to think of a model, like something that we could actually write down or enunciate clearly. And it's basically how much work or how much skill does it take for you to land a job doing the thing that you're best at? AKA, I would like to think, okay, that's a separate conversation, but the thing that people are good at, is that what fulfills them? Maybe necessarily not. But let's say that is the case. Let's say the thing that you care about most, the thing that you're passionate about, because I think this is the case for most people, is also the thing that you could become most competent at.
Okay.
I think that there's a bar that you have to reach, a threshold of skill to actually be able to find a job in that space. And different jobs, different skills, I'm going to get there, don't worry. Different jobs, different skills have, you know, lower or higher bars for being accepted into that role.
Yeah.
Let's say something like a professional athlete. Okay, we were talking about soccer off air, when we weren't recording.
Yeah.
Soccer is a fantastic passion. A lot of people love to be soccer players. It has a very, very high bar to be paid to play it, of course. Other jobs that aren't as awesome, let's say, have a lower bar. Let's say if there's somebody out there whose passion, let's just say, for some reason, they get life's joy from riding a forklift. Okay, that bar is not as high as being a professional soccer player because there aren't that many people whose passion in the world is to ride a forklift.
Right.
Now, once again, those are two very big extremes. But think of something like what you're doing, okay? Technical work, coding, AI, this sort of thing. Something that you've studied to do. Yeah. So you would think that, okay, I've spent 4 years at UofT learning code. I want to now apply my skills. I didn't want to just come here to F around and not do anything with what I've learned. I actually want to, apply what I've learned. So I don't know exactly where that bar is for coding. Yeah. People need to reach the skill level it takes for a company to want to take them on, because if you're just an average coder, if you're just, or maybe even like subpar, companies don't necessarily get all that much value enough to want to hire you, right? And especially because coding, CS is quite a competitive market to be in. So there's a lot of good people to choose from. This is basically just to say, like you said, you can change the job, or you have to really just get good enough to a point where you're like, I want to code. This company's only hiring. I guess I'm literally just circling around the point that you have to be good to get hired. This is ridiculous. But
no, I get what you're trying to get at, though.
I think fulfillment comes from competence. If you want to feel fulfilled, you need someone to give you an opportunity to do that. And for someone to give you that opportunity, you have to be good enough for them to want to give it to you.
It is a cycle, but your point, I get it. Your point is that if you want to feel good about what you do, then you have to be good at what you do so that you can get the chance to prove you're good at what you do. So, I get what you're saying. So for me, for example, I would say that I'm honestly probably an average coder. I don't do things like leak code. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's like basically coding practice. It's challenging problems, and a lot of job interviews make you do it in the interview to test your skills. So a lot of people, they do that as practice in their free time to, really, polish their skills and stuff, right? I don't do that because I don't feel that need to do that. Like, I don't have that burning desire that I need to be the elite level coder that's going to go work for Google. Don't get me wrong. I would love to work for a nice big company like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that was the dream when I was in high school. It's like, I'm going to work for some big company like Apple, Google, whatever. And I have some friends. I know some people who've done things like that, right? Like I have family as well as somebody who works at Google currently. So, it's like, I know it's possible, but if I don't have the burning desire to do what it takes to do that, it's not for me.
Yeah.
I'm not destined to do that because I don't feel that desire.
Yeah.
And
somebody else does.
Somebody else does, exactly. Me and my sister had this conversation about a different topic, but we had the same point. If you don't have the burning desire to reach the level required to do something, you don't actually want to do that.
Yeah, right.
So I think that's the point you were trying to make, and I totally agree.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you need to put in the effort. You need to be able to reach that bar to then have the opportunity to be at that bar.
Yes.
Like, basically,
to have the opportunity to perform at that level.
Yeah.
So it sounds super basic, but it's actually, I feel like it is kind of deep. People always talk about fulfillment. People always talk about, doing what they want to do. We were talking off air about these people that dread the career world. Yeah. A lot of them, not everyone, obviously, partying is fun for people in college, and that doesn't mean that they're dreading the rest of their life. They just do it because it's fun. But there are definitely some people who take college as the opportunity to live it up. Like I was saying off camera, it's the best 4 years of your life. You got to make the most of it because they're thinking, wow, after this, no summers,
there's nothing left.
There's nothing left. Yeah, I'm going to be, aging. I'm going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again until I retire. The next 40 years of my life are going to fly by because it's all going to be just repetitive actions. Now, I think the way to get out of that for people who do think like that, to find fulfillment, is literally just by being better at what you want to do that you think will fulfill you.
Yeah,
if podcasting fulfills me, and let's say in the future I want opportunities to host things or interview interesting people, I'm sure that's a very high bar, because how many interviewers do you really need? You don't need that many. There's plenty of people, and one person can interview a lot. So to get that opportunity of fulfillment, instead of being in a packing plant, shipping boxes, doing something that has nothing to do with my passion, I need to make sure I'm good enough to get those opportunities.
Yeah.
It's so basic, but I feel like that's a very important thing to know.
I think a lot of people don't realize it, or they don't contextualize it to themselves. Like what we're talking about right now, somebody might hear this and agree, but then when they try and apply it to their own life, they might actually find it more profound than it might seem. Because people don't realize when you want something, if you're not doing everything you can to get it, you might not actually want it as much as you think. Yeah. That's, I think, the bottom line there. I think that is more profound than it sounds, but it has a deeper meaning for sure. 100%. I agree.
Do you think that meaning or wanting things from life comes naturally? Do you think someone can learn that? Because I know that there are definitely students who think we're talking about passion here, talking about stuff you're interested in. There are people out there who are just like, I really am not interested in anything, or at least anything employable. Like, I have fun playing Call of Duty, but like, to be a streamer, that could be a shot in the dark. Like, how, like, if I actually want to do something that people want to pay me for, it's like I don't care about anything. Do you think that's just like a curse? Do you think people can find something they're interested in, or do you even believe that that's a true reality for people?
I think that's either A, you're too pessimistic, or B, you haven't found that thing yet. That's kind of where I would stand in that. I guess a debate of sorts. But I think if you don't find something that it's like, I really want to do that, then you, like I said, you either haven't found it yet because you haven't done enough exploring, you haven't experienced something, or you haven't thought about something in a way that's like, I actually could do that for the rest of my life. I actually don't think about that as a job, right? So they've possibly never thought about it in that lens before, or they're just being pessimistic and they see something they like, or like, let's say they like Call of Duty. They're like, oh, I could never be a streamer. It's so hard. There are too many streamers out there, blah, blah, blah. Like, you can be a streamer. Do you actually want to be a streamer? Yes. Okay. Put in the effort. You know what's required. You see the level. Match that level, and it's possible. Like, it's kind of corny, but it's like nothing's impossible if you really want it.
Well, I do agree with that, And I was using like streamer as an example because that's something that maybe I don't value. But if there was someone who was genuinely like, no, I think the what would give me the most purpose in life is to get really good at this game and to be entertaining while doing it. And I'm going to study and I'm going to practice. I'm going to try to get really good, and not only at the game side of it, but I'm also going to try to get really good at being entertaining and engaging. I think anyone who takes their work seriously, no matter what the work is respectable.
Exactly.
Even if it's something like that, if you have a purpose of wanting to entertain people, that's not a bad purpose to have.
Exactly.
Especially if it's not, motivated by just like, I really I can't fathom working, because some people whose dream is to play video games isn't necessarily fueled by a desire to work and improve and get better.
Yeah, it's just to play.
Yeah, exactly.
So I see what you mean. There is also a fine line, I guess, in that sense, where it's like, sure, you might like something, but the line between liking it so much to do it as a job and liking it so much to do nothing except that.
Right.
And it's not even a job at that point.
Yeah.
There's a difference there, for sure.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an interesting conversation. We're not wrapped up, but I mean, just interesting talking about fulfillment and work, and hopefully people watching have got something out of that. How do I make this transition?
Oh, I know what transition you're thinking of.
How do I make this transition?
I have a good transition. So, my friend Snoopmesh. Fun fact, his name is not actually Snoopmesh, it's Somesh. I don't know. He loves the Snoopmesh alias, the persona. But anyway, topic for another day. I may have just outed him.
I think you just exposed his
I'm
ass.
sorry, buddy. The truth had to come out. Snoopmesh exposed. Big title. Anyway, so one thing he talks about a lot in that podcast episode was wolf and sheep, which is something that resonated with me very deeply, and I just needed to talk about some things about that. So, TLDR, I'm going to give you the preamble before the big amble. Don't be sheep, okay? Every year, a new iPhone's going to come out. That's a set in stone fact, okay? Same thing. Samsung does the same thing. Don't be a sheep and like the memes that say they're the same every year, because they're not. Please, don't be that person, okay? Haha, it's so funny. It looks the same. They just moved the camera. It's not that, okay? There's many reasons why, and you need to educate yourself. Okay, we can get into it now.
Let's break it. I love that. That's fantastic. Break it down, because for me, until my speaker got absolutely blasted in the ass, I was someone who thought, I'm going to upgrade every 6 iPhones.
Yeah.
So I had an iPhone 6 as my first phone. Then I got a 12. I upgraded. And now I'm like, I'm going to wait for the 18. I probably can't wait for the 18 right now, because that speaker is actually destroyed. And the cost it would take to fix it is not worth it. I'm just going to try to get a new phone.
Yeah.
So for me, I'm in the market. Sell me on why I should get this new. What's the new? Do you know what the newest phone is?
The newest phone is the iPhone 16 and 16 Pro.
So why should I get 16 and not 15?
So you have an iPhone 12, right?
Yes.
Okay, let me sell it to you for your specific phone then.
Okay.
So you have an iPhone 12. You have the notch cut out at the top, yes? So the newer iPhones have what's called a dynamic island. It's a little pill-shaped cutout. It can give you information about, if you have a score app, like I have FOTMob, or if you have the score, it can give you live score updates that are on the side. So like while you're scrolling, it'll just update at the top. If you're playing music, it'll show you there. You can change the music from there as well. So that's one thing. You'll have a better screen. The bezels on the edges, not as thick. They're smaller, thinner, better quality. The phone is now, I think, slightly thinner. The camera quality is obviously a lot better. It's in the last 4 generations. You have more durable glass, and you'll get 5G. So there's a whole laundry list of things that will change in actual user experience.
Okay. Let me ask you.
Yes.
Throughout the years, so you say, it's a little bit thinner, or they do this. Even if the phone perhaps changes year over year, is it the case that sometimes it changes? Let's say the 12 is different from the 13. The 13 is different from the 14, but the 14 is somehow similar to the 12 in this way. They just went back to what they had before.
That has happened.
Does that happen?
That does happen. Let me think of a good example for that.
Do you have an iPhone or a Samsung?
Oh, I have an iPhone. I have okay, this is going to sound like I'm an Apple glazer. I have the new iPhone, okay? I upgraded after 3 years, so I'm not the person who gets it every year. But there are times where they go back and forth on those things. Like, for example, if you remember the possibly greatest phone design of all time, the iPhone 5. Skinny, slim, rectangular, not bigger than your palm. They had square edges. They came back to the square edges when the iPhone 12 came around, right? Because they realized, people don't really like the rounded edges. It's just harder to hold. So they went back to the square shape. It was actually in their benefit. They can stuff more components in there now. Yeah. So that does happen, but not in recent increments of like 12 to 14 or whatever, because they're kind of more aligned on what they think is the right decision. You know what I mean? Like if they think this is a move to make, they're going to now add this specific thing. They hardly ever go back on that these days. But Yeah, I guess the point that we're making between phone generations here is one of the main reasons that iPhones don't look that different every year is because you're not supposed to get it every year. You're really not supposed to get it every year unless you're that extra less than 1% ultra enthusiast who gets the top end iPhone every single year. Because like I said, for your phone, there's a huge list of things that have changed that are actually tangible, that are actually better for your user experience. So that's reason number one. You're not actually supposed to upgrade every year because, you know, you can take the environmental aspect on it as well. Electronic waste. Why does everyone get a new phone every year? These phones are designed to last a couple years. The batteries last a couple years. Maybe not as good as when you get them brand new, but they still work for a couple years. They're good enough to last you a day until God knows the end of time. But, you know, if you go from 12 to 13, you're going to have not a lot of change. If you go from 12 to 14, there'll be a little bit more. 12 to 15, there'll be even more. By the time you get to 12 to, let's say, 16 now, they're like those small changes have accumulated into an actually good upgrade. That's the point. They know this, all these phone manufacturers, that like the number of people who buy new phones every year is actually going down. So fun fact, in 2024, Apple's financial reports, like, you know, they have to publicly say it. Their number of iPhones selling have gone down, but the amount of money they make has gone up.
Interesting.
So they have, obviously, you know, Apple ecosystem. You buy things, you buy your iCloud storage, you buy Apple Music, whatever, right? You buy AirPods, you buy whatever. You get all the things in their nice little bubble. So that's where they make their money. But they're selling less iPhones every year because less people actually feel the need to upgrade, which is intentional. They want you to be a long-time customer, not a one-time customer.
Right.
So they'll give you a good phone now, and then in 4 years, when your phone, you're like, okay, I want to upgrade, and you see the huge gap, there you go. You're like, okay, this person's now going to want to buy Apple again because they realize that they like their current iPhone, but they want the new stuff. They want the upgrades, the improvements. So reason number one, they don't want you to actually upgrade every year. If you do, you're going to be the person who complains and says, haha, it's the same thing. That's not for you.
So earlier, you were talking about how even when you were in your co-op, you were looking for other opportunities, you were applying to different places. Did Apple hire you to come here and sell us the new iPhone?
Let me make a disclaimer. I am not an Apple employee. I have not been secretly paid. I'm not an Apple glazer. I just follow the space. And
can I ask you why you're passionate about the problem? Is it this sheep wolf thing? You just see so many people saying the same and you're like, I need to get on VoV and set the record straight?
I think it genuinely is. It's such a big gripe. It irks me so much every September, okay? Every September, 2nd to 3rd week, I think it's on a Tuesday, they announce, here's the new iPhone. About 20 minutes later, there's a meme of them photoshopping the camera from here to here and said they'd rename it. And it just pisses me off so much because it's like, if that clearly shows you're ignorant. You're not trying to educate yourself and actually see what has changed. Like, they do a whole 1-hour presentation, but you've ignored it and looked at the one picture. You know what I mean? Like, that bothers me so much. And it's like that. The reason why I'm passionate is like, I've just seen a lot of like growing up in the last like 10 years. I don't know if you know, but tech YouTuber, the biggest one, MKBHD, very popular. He plays like, you know, golf and tennis, or sorry, frisbee and stuff. But he is kind of like the biggest tech reviewer, and he does not a fully deep dive into all of these releases and stuff, but enough for a consumer level. That's why he's so popular. He kind of brings it down to the level that people care about. But, you know, I've watched those, and I kind of have a keen eye for the little details. So every time he talks about something more in depth, I'll remember it. And then after, you know, over time, I've just kind of accumulated the knowledge of him and other reviewers on YouTube and whatever. And together, I've kind of just formulated this understanding of the space in a way that most people don't care to know. And that's as Snoop Mesh says, don't be a wolf. Sorry, don't be sheep. Please don't be sheep. Just don't be sheep, because it's like those memes, they're supposed to be funny, but they've been going around for so many years now. It's not funny, guys. It's time to just educate yourself. We're in a world where education and knowledge is everywhere. Just learn a little. Like, please. There's more reasons. Like I said, number one, they don't want you to upgrade every year. There's more. Shall I dive into it more?
Keep breaking it down, man.
So, let's see. Reason number two. We live in North America, right? Yes. So our phone market share is primarily dominated by Apple and Samsung, as we probably could have guessed. There's a small percentage of other manufacturers like OnePlus, Google Pixels as well. They have I think 10-something%, something like that. Not as big as Apple and Samsung, right? Now, compared to, let's say, Asian markets, China, India, Asian markets, stuff like that, their space is so much more competitive. Apple actually has a much smaller minority. Samsung's, I think, one of the top because the thing is with Samsung, they sell a phone at every single price point at increments of about $10. So 500,
What?
510, 520,
Really?
It's insane. They have so many phone models. They have
This is only in the Asian market, or is this also here?
You can get it here, but in a smaller selection here.
Got it.
And now, so the point I'm trying to make here is that these companies, they come here and they see that, okay, people are upgrading every 4 years, which is good. They buy into ecosystems more than they buy into products. So A, we're not going to change them too much every year because, we don't need them to upgrade every year. But B, we don't need to change them every year because people are buying them anyway. So it's like people are either going to buy Apple or Samsung. Smaller minority might buy a Google Pixel phone. A smaller minority might buy something else. So it's like they're taking the gamble that, okay, if I change it a little bit this year, the people who are upgrading this year, they're picking between basically two phones, an Apple iPhone or a Samsung phone. Yeah. So they don't have the need to innovate. Meanwhile, in Asia, where the competition is so fierce, you have phones getting insanely thin. You have phones getting insanely powerful. You have insane value phones, which are like $600 when you convert it, but they have like insane specs and performance. You know what I mean? Like they're really striving to get the customer. That's their thing. They need to get the customer. Yeah. Here, Samsung and Apple, they already have so many customers. It's just about keeping them.
Do you think that they try to perhaps delay certain upgrades so that they have an upgrade for the next phone?
Oh, absolutely. People have been, especially Apple, people say this about Apple all the time. The quote, Apple way is to wait a couple of years until they can do it in the way that they like. So for example, Samsung has had like I was saying, your phone has like a notch cut out at the top for Face ID. When they switched to that pill-shaped dynamic island, they did that years later than Samsung switched to like a cutout. Like the notches, I'm talking like 2017 tech, and they were releasing the notch way into like 2022. So what they did was they're like, okay, we're gonna wait it out, let the tech really develop, and then we're gonna do it our way and make it Apple branding. Make it super cool. Like we just innovated.
Yeah.
So they take their time on a lot of features just to make it look nice and make it like their unique thing, even though the tech is actually a lot older. So they definitely do actually stage, like you said, certain upgrades so that certain model years look way more impressive than they should have been.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the ecosystems that you're talking about that Apple, I don't exactly know where it's at. I thought it was already released, but maybe not, was Apple AI. So Apple Intelligence. And when this was, once again, I don't know where they're at, but when this was, coming out, when they were basically like revealing their plan of what this Apple Intelligence would consist of, Elon Musk made a big storm on X.
I remember this,
and he was like, if this goes through, I'm banning iPhones at Tesla. No one's allowed to have an iPhone. This is a complete breach of privacy. Do you know anything about Apple Intelligence? Can you explain to me what's going on there?
Okay, so this is quite literally, it's funny you bring this up. In about the last month or so, Apple Intelligence has been under a lot of heat.
Yeah.
Because at launch of the new iPhone, they're like, oh, this new lineup of iPhones is built for Apple Intelligence.
Yeah.
Right? That was the big headline, right? But then in the fine print, it says that Apple Intelligence will be released to these phones in a software update. So people were already concerned. They're like, wait, it's not at launch? Okay, maybe they need a little bit more time to develop it. All fine. It is now pretty much May. So it's been about 6 to 8 months since the iPhone came out. There is a very small handful of those Apple Intelligence features that have actually made it out. They made a big deal of the new Siri. It's not out. ChatGPT integration is not out. It's only in the betas. Notification summaries, I don't know if you saw, but it did a very crappy job when it first came out. Like the summaries would be really bad. It's like, oh, somebody killed this person, and then semicolon something else. And it's like it combined the two notifications in the worst possible combination.
Yeah.
So Apple Intelligence and this whole breach of privacy thing, I remember Elon Musk talking about that, and I don't know. He kind of over exaggerated. There was no breach of privacy there at all because everything is at worst linked to a ChatGPT account. Right. So a lot of people already trust ChatGPT with their queries. So I don't know what his whole breach of privacy thing was about. But in terms of Apple Intelligence, this has gone under a lot of heat because for the first time in many years, it feels like Apple has made a mistake. And it's clear. They announced it because they didn't want to fall behind on the AI wave.
Right.
Otherwise, they'd be like, oh, you're 2 years late. Samsung's been doing this for 2 years.
Yeah.
They just needed to be there and show that they're ready, but they're not actually ready.
Interesting.
So it's just very recently it's become a hot topic because everyone's thinking, they're like, where is this stuff? I swear it was supposed to already be here. And so again, that's at the start of the podcast. I said that they throw AI in everything. Trust me, phones do not need AI. Like, to some degree, sure, it's helpful. But then they have these like image playground stuff where it's like you just generate an image. And it's a whole separate app now. Use cases, maybe none.
Yeah.
So it's like, again, it's one of those things where Apple, for once, has actually made a blunder. They're not doing very well with that. They're losing ground. Even the features that are out are not that good. So yeah, it's a rocky road for them.
That's a fun one to talk about too, because Apple's reputation is, I'd say, among the best in the world. For sure. Amongst companies, like you said, they don't miss very often. I think their VR headset didn't really last very long.
No, it's incredibly heavy. It's also like $3,600. It doesn't have a lot of app support. That's rough. Also a mess. That's one of those things where it's like they could release a new one this year with a bunch of improvements and things they've learned. Yeah. But they'll save it for the next one because they want the next one to be revolutionary. Right. Just like you were mentioning before. They're going to save a lot of stuff for whatever's next.
100%. So when you look at, this is getting to my interest a little more, but you actually are interested in business too. We talked about DECA last time.
Yes, we did.
Smoking the business kids.
That clip I've gone infamous in my family and my friends. Everybody talks about it. I'm not joking. When I told my dad, I'm like, hey, I'm going for the podcast again on Sunday. He's like, oh, the one where you said that business thing? I'm like,
that's awesome.
Yeah, that's the one.
do they think it's funny, or what do they?
They found it funny, but I mean, like, I still I cringe and I wince at the fact because it's like I have people who I know who are in business programs, and they heard me say that. And it's like, it's okay, whatever.
It still gets likes to this day on the TikTok account. I'll check, and I was like, oh, nice, it's funny. That's one of my favorite videos. That was really good. But no, you smoke the business kids. What do you think about overall? I mean, not that we can comment too much about this with our business knowledge, but like Apple's branding, obviously the few flops they've made. What do you think they've done right in terms of a large perspective of how to brand? I think branding is what they've been best at.
I think at the start, when you look at like the first iPhone, they brought in the touchscreen and they had a virtual keyboard. I remember I've looked into this a lot because, you wonder, where's BlackBerry now? They're dead. Fun fact. They do security services now. They're nowhere in the tech space, really. But anyway, when they started, they were the innovators. They were the people who were taking the next stride. They practically, invented the smartphone. Yeah. So at the start, for the first 5 to 10 years of the iPhone and the iPad, it was like they're pushing the boundaries. They're showing what the new technology can do. But then they kind of took a very slow turn into the more I'd say the luxurious, the more luxurious and more pricey market. So for example, in the iPhone X, the iPhone 10 launched, it was $1,000 at launch. That kind of shifted them into a space of pricier, high-end premium devices. So at the start, they were the cool new company that stepped into the space and they're doing cool new products, features, whatever, right? Then they became the more classy, the more luxurious, and they got pro models. The pro models have these really like neutral tone colors, and they're like $1,200. It's like, oh yeah, what phone do you use? It's $1,200. It's the iPhone Pro. It's like, whoa, you're big money. You know what I mean? Like their branding has been subtle, and as of late, it's been subtle. At the start, it was like really in your face. I don't know if you remember, but old like iTunes ads was like really colorful and in your face with the iPod shuffles and stuff. But so their branding, what they've done really right is making that switch. Because if they were still the really fun poppy brand, they would have lost a lot over the years. Now it's like, as we know, pop culture is like, oh, you don't have an iPhone? Haha, Samsung loser. Right? So that switch of branding to the more luxurious, the classy, the high-end product. Sleek. Yes, the sleek, like the optimum. It's like the ideal, the clean, futuristic look. That is what they've done really well because everybody knows it as that now. Yeah. They're no longer that flashy company. They are just the bar. They are the bar.
Yeah, they are. Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah.
You want to, I mean, that's tough to I guess, kind of big circle.
Yeah.
What we were talking about with reaching that threshold in the work
Yeah.
world. You, I guess, you want to be the standard as much as you can.
Exactly.
And it's not like, as a university computer science student who just graduated, you're going to be out here competing with these like extremely, experienced, vetted coders or anything. But within smaller and smaller markets, I think that's the key to success in some ways. It's what is the largest domain, or what is the largest community, or what is the largest industry or sector or department I can be number one in. So definitely everybody, you want to shrink it right down. You are the best in the world at coding with AI, whose name is Hrid Patel, who's in 4th year UofT, born in Brampton, has a YouTube channel with music on it, right? You're number one in that sphere because that sphere is just one person. But the larger you can, scale that domain, the better you are. And I think it's good to start. I think it's always good to be number one that's an argument to have, right? Is it better to be the big fish in a small pond or small fish in a lake or whatever? But I've been more, I guess I've seen more proof of being,
big
number
fish.
one, big fish in a small pond until you can kind of grow that pond. So with the podcast, like if I tried to start a podcast that was, let's say in second year when I started this, that was Toronto based.
Right.
I don't know. It definitely wouldn't. I don't think it would have done as well or grown as well or lasted as long, because it's not like it's that big necessarily. I mean,
come on, Carter. Don't need to be humble, okay?
I mean,
VoV podcast is great. All right,
the
things
thing.
it does.
I don't know if it's humble or arrogant to say that it's not that big, because someone just starting out is like, what I would die to have something like this.
That's true. Perspective.
But, so like I'm happy with where it's at.
Yeah.
That's the best way to say it. But if I try to make it Toronto centered, it's not as targeted. The fact that it's Voices of Vic, it's like, what the hell? I go to Victoria College, even though there's only 4,000 students here. It's super, super targeted for that person. It's like, this is the only podcast, obviously, in this community. So the bigger that you can make that pool, the better off. So
I see. So kind of to tie that back to the Apple space, when they started, they were small fish in a very big pond. They then changed the pond and became the big fish.
Exactly. They changed the pond to being basically the only. It was a one competitor industry, a one man industry. It was literally just Apple working with smartphones, like you said. They kind of invented it.
Yes, exactly.
So, man, that's a good lesson.
Yeah,
that's a good lesson.
Do you want
to talk about innovating like you were before?
Yes. Do you want to go into reason number 3?
Yes.
Okay, because then I'll do a nice little blurb at the end to summarize this. Make a very nice clip.
Perfect.
See, look at me. I'm social media centric. All right. Anyway, so reason number 3, the technology does not develop that quickly. So, for example, I'm going to go through a list of the iPhones. I pick iPhones because it's in people's minds more. If I say the Samsung S7, nobody knows what that phone is. I do, but most people won't. But if I say the iPhone 7, you have a better picture.
Yeah.
So, when you start at, let's say, the iPhone 4, it was like about this big, square, and it was, I think 4G was the big thing on that, right? So you had iPhone 4. You go to iPhone 5, it got slimmer. They made it taller, bigger screen. And then eventually for the 5S, they added a fingerprint sensor. So you see like 4 to 5, there's this change in the form factor, better display, a fingerprint sensor, whatever. There's innovation happening year on year. iPhone 5 to 6 is, well, tragic because I'm sure you know the bend gate where people put it in their back pocket. They sat on it and they bent. Do you remember those?
I didn't.
Oh, well, this was one of Apple's big lawsuits over the years. But they made the iPhone 6 so thin because that was the big deal. They're like, they made it bigger and they made it so thin. It's like about this thin. But the problem was that it was so thin that when you put it in your pocket, you sat, it literally bent. Anyway, so ignoring the bend gate stuff, 5 to 6, it got really thin. They got bigger. So again, technological innovation. 6 to 7, they added a second camera. And so back then, obviously, phones only had one camera, but they improved the resolution. They added another camera. And, you know, that was one of the first mainstream phones to have 2 cameras. Again, they weren't actually the first. They weren't the first. As the Apple way is, they do things later. So they added a second camera and they added portrait mode. So you get blurry backgrounds, cinematic pictures, right? 7, then they released the 8 and the 10 at the same time, but then 7 to 10, I'm gonna skip the 8. They added the full screen display, which is what we're used to now. They weren't the first to do a full screen display, but they're like, wow, look at this full screen display, OLED technology, deeper blacks, better battery life, right? Same thin form factor. 10 to 11, they added a third camera, and the screen was a little bit better. Then 11 to 12, this is where things get more interesting. 11 to 12, they made the side square, and the cameras got a little better. 12 to 13, they made the notch at the top that I was talking about earlier a little smaller, and the cameras got a little better. 13 to 14, they got rid of the notch, and the cameras got a little better. 14 to 15, it's now made of titanium, and the cameras got a little better. 15 to 16, they added this gimmicky button on the side called the camera control, and the cameras got a little better. Now tell me, Carter, where in that line do you see a very clear drop-off in year-over-year innovation?
Yeah, right at that 12, 11, 13
exactly.
mark, yeah.
So basically what's happened is we've kind of reached the ceiling of what smartphones are capable of and what people want. They can make a thinner phone, but then you sacrifice battery life, and people love a long-lasting battery. So that's not going to happen. We've reached a ceiling, and before it was like, oh, with the iPhone 5, we're going to push the ceiling, and we're going to push the ceiling and then reach it again. We're going to push the ceiling and then reach it again. Now we've reached the ceiling we can't really push. There are small technical improvements that we're making in battery tech. For example, this year, there's silicon carbide batteries, for example. I'm talking a lot of jargon here, but I'm trying to simplify it. So you have better battery tech coming this year, but that's about it.
Yeah.
So we've reached a ceiling, and we've reached a point where we cannot make them better or that much better year over year, which comes back to the point. That's why they stage some upgrades where it's like, oh, this year we're not going to have that much to put, so let's actually save it for the next year. The next year's will look better. Yeah. So we've reached a ceiling, and now it's like we can't make them much better. It's like, what else could Apple do if we've reached the peak form factor? Right. You kind of can't, because you got to look at the people.
Yeah. And the peak of what people are looking for out of an iPhone.
Exactly.
Basically. Like, you could try to innovate it in a way that, I don't know, like it could store water that you could drink, but no one's looking to drink water from the phone.
That's exactly the issue. It's like, so now it's like, okay, people are buying the iPhones. So let's tie it all back together. So people are buying the iPhones every year to upgrade, not necessarily year after year they're buying every iPhone, but there are people who upgrade every few years, and every year there's going to be people who upgrade. So we don't need to worry about iPhone quantity sales. Then it's like, okay, so we don't need to worry about that. Secondly, what did I say? I said there was, okay, so what were the 3 reasons I gave? I forgot now. One of them was that people upgrade every year. You're not supposed to buy it every year. Second one was, the markets. Oh, God, there we go. Okay, so let's look at North America. So people are sometimes buying every year, but people are upgrading every year. So there's a good number of people who buy this phone every year. We're in North America. We make our primary amount of money out of North America. Not a lot of competition, so who cares? We don't need to innovate it that much. But we can't even innovate it that much, so why do we even care? Yeah. So that's it. That's the 3 main reasons why the iPhone looks the same every year, or looks the same. Remember, educate yourself. It is not the same every year. I just told you it's not. So those are 3 reasons. They don't need to innovate it. They can't innovate it, and they really don't want to. Yeah. That's exactly what it comes down to. So
the future of Apple is an interesting thing to talk about. I guess the reason that they'd have to keep trying to make new things is because if their competitor, if their competitor is also just going to make the small little tweaks, and a Samsung 32 probably sounds better than if iPhone just stays at the 16. So it might, honestly, at that point, it could just be a marketing thing.
It could be, absolutely. There's definitely a psychological aspect of, he has the 17 over the 16. Yeah. But if you know the differences, it's like, okay, it's not a big deal. It's basically the same phone, right?
Right.
You can make that argument. Okay.
So do you think that, once again, we're at that ceiling. Do you think iPhone at this point, or Apple at this point, is... like when I think about that, they can't really transition into our business model is going to be just kind of selling this phone. Yeah. This is a good phone. They'll probably just stick to the same small upgrades year over year.
That's the thing. People don't realize that. It's like, I get why, though. It's like 10 years ago, like I was mentioning.
Yeah.
5 to 6, 6 to 7. Every year, there was something visibly and very big upgrade every year, which actually made people want to upgrade every year as well.
Right.
Now, it's more of the case that, you're kind of not supposed to buy it every year.
Yeah.
And every year is not actually that different of a phone.
And maybe people are expecting it. They remember when Apple was able to make something completely brand new year over year.
That's why I think the memes are like, okay, for somebody who just spoke about half an hour on Apple iPhones, it is not that funny to me. But I get why other people find it funny. It's like, haha, so funny. They just changed the number on the back.
Yeah.
But, it's a lot deeper. And I'm glad I got to educate the people. Hopefully, this is a PSA. Please listen to this segment.
I don't know if you've seen the meme. It's like, it's one guy, it's a knight with a sword, and there's a whole army standing in front of him, and it's just him by himself.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
And the caption is, what argument, what opinion would you fight this battle for?
This is me now.
We know Ridge is the new iPhone
this is me
argument.
Right now, okay? Anyway, yeah, so I get the memes. I understand why it happens, but it's like, you know what? Have your fun. Have your laughs. But it's like, if you know, okay?
Yeah.
And I'd appreciate it as somebody who's really in this space to just have more people know. It'd be great. Because right now, it's like, if I didn't even have this opportunity to say this, I'd be explaining this very long half-hour conversation individually to people. I don't have that. This is a great opportunity for me to share my message.
Absolutely. Appreciate you doing it. It reminds me of like EA Sports games.
Yes.
Except EA Sports, I think actually there's so much less to innovate within like a sports video game than there is with an actual iPhone. Yeah. So I think that's fair on sports games. NHL 25 versus NHL 24 is like really similar.
As somebody who's been playing FIFA for years, I absolutely agree. I have been upgrading like every 3 to 4 years, honestly. It's like I have teams from like 4 years ago, and they do not have these players anymore. There are players who don't even exist in this old game anymore. Yeah. But it's like, if I get the one right after, I'm not really going to notice too much, right? And in that case, like you said, it's justified. It's like, you can't hate on it because it's a sports game. Unless the sport itself changes a lot, what are you going to do?
Yeah, 100%.
But, anyway, PSA, everyone, educate yourself.
There you go. That's an experience I have with, I don't get the chance to play it. If I got time to play it, I love this game. It's on the Wii. It's NHL Slapshot. It was released in 2010. Wow. And we're getting to the point where the game is about to have no more active players from the league today.
Way.
So we got Crosby in the game. We got Ovechkin in the game. Some of these older guys are still in there. But in a few years' time, I'm going to have a Wii game, if I'm still interested in playing it, that has no more active players.
No more active players.
So
that's tragic.
And obviously, they don't make new NHL Wii games, so I'm kind of stuck with that. But it's a classic. Anyone who knows that. Oh, my God. Respect.
NHL Slapshot. I might have to check that out. No active players is wild, though. Holy.
Yeah. Maybe I gotta learn how to play on Xbox. Unfortunately, I never had Xbox or PlayStation growing up.
Oh, really?
No. We stuck with the Wii and we stuck with our iPads. Shout out Apple.
Yeah.
There you go.
There we go. Back to the Apple, full circle.
100%. Do you have any final thoughts? Any last words you want to share with the audience before we sign out? It's been a great 2025 edition.
Of
Hrid Patel's episode.
No, honestly, I don't have much to say. Like I was saying earlier, work smarter, not harder. If that means using ChatGPT as a tool, bolded, underlined, italicized, as a tool, then please do. There's nothing wrong with that. You're just using the internet as a resource. Other than that, that was just a little PSA, my personal motto of life. Well, thank you for having me. I've been watching the podcast basically ever since it started because, you started it. I saw it come up on my feed, and then I followed, and then I came on here, kept watching, and I came on here again. It's great to have a place where you can hear students in our community speak about things that they're passionate about, things that impact themselves, things that impact us as a group. It's been great. And, you had the dean. It was the dean, right?
Yeah. No, it's the president.
Sorry, president. Yeah, you had the president on the podcast, and, it's been a passion project of yours, and it's been lovely to watch the growth. So I'm just honored to be here, not once, but twice.
Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing this.
Of course.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is Hrid Patel. He's in the hundreds at this point. He was at the 20s. Yeah. He's the record holder. We'll see how long he can hold that record for the biggest gap between repeat episodes. So thank you for coming on and sticking with the podcast this long. I appreciate it.
All right.
You can check us out on Instagram @VoicesOfVic, and we will see you next Sunday. Peace out.